Welcome. Today, we will discuss Terminator Armour, the pinnacle of Imperial technology that protects Space Marines on the battlefield. Terminator Armour, officially designated Tactical Dreadnought Armour, is an advanced form of powered combat armour developed for close-quarters melee and ranged fighting done by Space Marine Terminators, for whom slaying power is more important than manoeuvrability. These suits are primarily utilized in situations where standard Space Marine power armor does not provide enough protection for a warrior. When battle calls for durability and protection over agility, it is to revered suits of Terminator armor that the Space Marines turn. Massively thick armor plates and powerful servo muscles drive these defensive shells, and only the best and bravest of a Space Marine chapter may don this ancient and sacred battle harness. Terminator armor is an incredibly durable suit comprising an outer shell of heavy-gauge ceramite plasteel composite plates mounted on an adamantium exoskeleton with servo-assisted interfaces that integrate with an Astarte's own neurological and muscular systems to enhance movement. Its advanced composition allows the wearer to survive hits from firepower that could penetrate even the armor of a tank, and it is the heaviest combat armor in any Imperial arsenal, able to withstand tremendous punishment. Offensively, it provides the strength to maintain mobility while serving as a solid heavy weapons platform in open-field combat. The elite first company of most Space Marine chapters uses Terminator armor extensively, and only those Astartes who earn the Crux Terminatus, a special badge of honor said to contain a fragment of the power armor worn by the Emperor of Mankind when he defeated Horus at the end of the Siege of Terra, are permitted to wear it. It is said that the Crux Terminatus behaves as a ward that augments the Terminator armor itself, capable of turning aside blows that would threaten even a war engine. In the era Indomitus of the 41st millennium, both Firstborn and Primaris Marines can serve as Terminators. Not even Archmagos Dominus Belisarius Call was able to improve upon the ancient and sacred Indomitus pattern Terminator armor. Any veteran Marine can earn the right to don a suit of tactical dreadnought armor, so veterans of the Tyrannic Wars and the Indomitus Crusade alike are clad in these suits of revered ceramite. Less frequently, high-ranking members of the Inquisition have been known to wear a form of Terminator armor sized for an ordinary human occupant. Notably, members of the Ordo Malleus in particular have been known to favor suits of Terminator armor. However, lacking the genetically engineered subdermal Space Marine organ known as the black carapace, Inquisitors are unable to neurologically interface with the armor and generally find its bulk much more cumbersome than a Space Marine does. Amongst the traitor legions that still reside within the hellish realm known as the Eye of Terror, only aspiring Chaos champions or Chaos Lords who stand in great favor to the ruinous powers wear Terminator armor. So scarce is Terminator armor among the heretic Astartes that sometimes an aspiring champion can only claim a suit for himself by killing the current wearer, whether in ritual combat or by more devious means. Chaos Terminators will often act as the personal guard of such an esteemed champion. Within a warband of Chaos Space Marines, Chaos Terminators enforce the will of their leader and always claim the most valuable spoils of any victory. History. Space Marine power armor has a long and glorious history, having its origins in the long-forgotten time before the Emperor's unification of mankind on Terra during the Unification Wars fought by his legions of gen-enhanced pseudo-Astartes, known as the Thunder Warriors. Nothing is known of this time, but it is speculated that the first suits of human-developed powered armor were worn by the techno-barbarians that fought alongside the Emperor as he battled to bring Terra under his rule during the Unification Wars of the 30th millennium. Over time, these suits were refined and improved, becoming the earliest incarnations of fully enclosed power armor. The first suits of Space Marine power armor were developed from this armor during the late 30th millennium, and were said to have been worn by the first Space Marines of the Legiones Astartes as they launched the Great Crusade to reunite the worlds of the Sol system under the Emperor's control. Legends tell that once the Terran solar system was secure, and the process of rebuilding firmly in hand, galactic conquest began in earnest. faded techno-arcana of the Adeptus Mechanicus tell that even before the Age of Strife had ended, the Emperor had started to make provisions for his Great Crusade. Part of these plans included the re-equipping of the Space Marine legions with a far more sophisticated fighting suit that Imperial historians have dubbed Mark II Crusader or Crusader armor. Alongside these developments, the Emperor initiated a program to develop a system of armor that would provide even greater protection than that offered by power armor for Space Marine legionaries on the field of battle. The technology for exo-armor was originally developed during mankind's age of technology. These sealed environment suits enabled maintenance crews of spacecraft to operate in extremely hazardous environments, such as hard vacuum or in other adverse atmospheric conditions. Exo-armor was constructed from heavy-gauge plasteel plating, forming an armored shell that could withstand even the colossal impact of high-speed orbital microdebris. It is the only armor suitable for working inside the high-pressure casings of plasma reactor shields or the extremely corrosive environments inside the holds of bulk chemical carriers. These same qualities, suitably enhanced, were used to make tactical Dreadnought armor virtually invulnerable to most weapons. The development of Terminator armor, as tactical Dreadnought armor soon became known, was well underway during the Great Crusade to replace power armor, but was relegated to its current role due to a lack of maneuverability. During the Great Crusade era, the ancient Mechanicum was receiving a steady influx of new and rediscovered technologies from each planet brought to Imperial compliance, and, in an effort to stem the horrendous loss of Astartes' lives resulting from the ferocious conquests, attempted to design the ultimate pattern of power armor which would render a Space Marine virtually invulnerable. The design emerged from a hybrid of standard Astartes power armor, the cybernetic shell of a Dreadnought, and the armoured hostile environment suits long worn by Terran engineers who worked in difficult conditions like debris-plagued orbital space and the radioactive engine cores of interstellar spacecraft. Tactical Dreadnought armor, as it was called, would turn the Astartes warrior within it into a living tank. The eventual result of the Mechanicum's travails was only a partial success. The first suits of Terminator armor did, as intended, afford a level of protection previously unattainable for its wearer. Like power armor, these suits were equipped with fiber-bundled synthetic muscles and imposed few movement restrictions upon the wearer despite their immense weight. But they were also too bulky, and their massive weight made running difficult, despite built-in auto-balancers. The suits suffered from voracious power demands, and few existing armaments could be carried as the armor's sheer bulk made handling and reloading impossible. But most importantly, the sheer amounts of raw materials and manpower required to craft Terminator armor was so great that retrofitting the whole of the existing Space Marine legions with it was simply not feasible for the already thinly stretched logistics of the nascent Imperium of Man. Several patterns of Terminator armor evolved in parallel from the forge worlds of the Mechanicum and the armories of the Space Marine legions. The Mechanicum refined their concept and developed weapons specially adapted for it, like combi weapons and the Reaper autocannon. Terminator armor was then presented in limited numbers to the crusading legions, who quickly found a use for it. Massively armored, sealed against any hostile environmental conditions, and incorporating their own heavy-ranged or close combat armament, Terminator armor designs soon proved their worth. Terminator armor, with its ability to maximize the firepower and protection for a Space Marine, became standard on missions in extremely confined spaces, like the corridors of a hive city, or during a boarding action on a space hulk, where dreadnoughts and armored vehicles could not operate because they were too large to fit. Anecdotal evidence of this adaptability and willingness to embrace new weapons of warfare can be found in Horus's vocal backing of the tactical Dreadnought armor project, with the result being that his Lunar Wolves Legion was one of the first and most widely equipped with Terminator armor and at the forefront of the development of tactics for its use in assaults. By the time the Horus heresy erupted, and the arch-traitor Horus first struck a blow against the Emperor during the Istvan III atrocity, these heavily armoured suits had become widely available to the Space Marine legions. According to fragmented records of the Adeptus Mechanicus, Terminator armor was originally designed to be the ultimate space marine power armor and was envisioned to replace the older suits. However, as the Horus Heresy devoured the Imperium's resources and the ancient Mechanicum divided into separate factions during the Schism of Mars, Terminator suits became increasingly rare, for they were exceptionally difficult to create and maintain. In addition, during most battles their bulk became a disadvantage against the lighter, power-armored warriors, who easily outmaneuvered them. These suits were highly sought after, and they were used to great effect in the countless bloody and short-ranged battles waged in cramped conditions, such as boarding actions in ship-to-ship engagements, hive cities and tunnel fighting. It is in these kinds of engagements that Terminator armor excels, as it is under these conditions that their bulk and sturdy frame serves best. Very few suits of this early Terminator armor were ever manufactured by the Mechanicum before the Horus Heresy began, and the secrets of the technology's design have now almost been lost. As a result, every suit of Terminator armor is treated as an irreplaceable precious relic by the Space Marine chapters that own them. In the 41st millennium, it is a rare thing to see a new suit of Terminator armor. If an additional suit is required, it is usually cobbled together from refurbished parts, salvaged from the remains of Terminators killed in action. Indeed, as time marches onward, the knowledge of how to fabricate some of the more complex pieces of Terminator armor has become only a desperate hope in the minds of the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, whose understanding of science and technology has been slowly decaying for the last 10,000 standard years. Due to the amount of labor required and the difficulty of reproducing a single suit of tactical Dreadnought armor, this armor is only produced in extremely small numbers. There are dark rumors that heretic warpsmiths within the Eye of Terror may also possess some rare copies of the original STC blueprints, thus making it possible for them to reproduce new suits of Terminator armor for the Chaos Space Marines of the Traitor Legions as well. Terminator armor composition. Terminator armor contains a full exoskeleton and a complex arrangement of fiber bundle muscles that allow a warrior to fight with deadly skill in close quarters, where agility is not of paramount importance. These incredibly durable suits are comprised of an outer shell of heavy-gauge ceramite and plasteel composite plates, mounted on an adamantium exoskeleton with servo-assisted interfaces that integrate with an Astartes' own neurological and muscular systems to enhance movement. Its advanced composition allows the wearer to survive hits from firepower that could penetrate tank armor, and it is the heaviest form of combat armor in any Imperial arsenal, able to withstand tremendous punishment. Offensively, it provides the strength to maintain mobility while serving as a solid heavy weapons platform in open-field combat. In the same manner as power armor, Terminator armor contains its own independent power supply and fully enclosed life support functions, though those incorporated in Terminator armor are more powerful and longer-lasting. Various augurs and auspex enable the Space Marine operator to be fully aware of his environment, both externally and internally, and to monitor such things as radiation levels, proximity of biological entities, and the life signals of the body. These operate in the same way as the support systems in power armor, although several other devices have been added to improve the protective aspects even further. Teleport homers enable the bearers to teleport into the midst of battle with a good degree of accuracy. Meanwhile, threat detectors and motion sensors aid the Space Marine in avoiding enemy weapon emplacements and other situational dangers. In addition, the suit is fully equipped with a range of autosenses and targeters, allowing the tracking of targets with the utmost accuracy. Terminators are linked to each other with picked display units, allowing the Space Marines to see what their brother warriors see. All suits are capable of this, but to avoid confusion, it is usual for only the squad sergeant's armor to broadcast picked signals. Terminator armor usage. A chapter's elite first company is known as the Veteran Company and contains its bravest and most heroic battle brothers. Many of these veteran Marines will have risen to the rank of Veteran Sergeant before being inducted, though less experienced Space Marines are often accepted into its ranks for performing acts of exceptional courage. These Space Marines are mighty heroes whose legendary actions have become part of the chapter's history, and it is every warrior's ambition to become one of their chapter's elite. The first company is invariably the most powerful company in the chapter, as many of its warriors are trained to take to the field of battle wearing Terminator armor. All Space Marine chapters maintain a number of suits of the revered and rightly feared Terminator armor, and these are amongst a chapter's most prized relics. Suits of Terminator armor are rare and highly sought after, and as such, each chapter carefully maintains the suits in its possession. Incredibly ancient, the secrets of their construction have long since been lost, and each one is revered by the Space Marines and lovingly maintained by the chapter's Tech Marines. The armor is often ancient, and many of the older suits were produced before the Horus Heresy. Although new suits of the Indomitus pattern are manufactured by the Adeptus Mechanicus, the production rate is so slow and the demand for them so great that each chapter takes the utmost care of its precious remaining suits. Each suit has a special place of honor within the First Company's chapel, and only warriors of the First Company and selected senior commanders may enter the armory and don these holy artifacts. It requires rigorous training to be able to fight in Terminator armor, and once trained in its use, a Space Marine will be expected to perform above and beyond his brethren, acting as an example to the rest of the chapter. Less frequently, high-ranking members of the Inquisition have been known to wear a form of Terminator armor sized for an ordinary human occupant. Notably, members of the Ordo Malleus in particular have been known to prefer them because of their struggles with often physically overpowering demons. However, lacking the genetically engineered subdermal Space Marine organ known as the Black Carapace, Inquisitors are unable to neurologically interface with the armor and generally find its bulk much more cumbersome than a Space Marine does. Honor badges, Crux Terminatus. Amongst the veteran Marines of the elite First Company, each Terminator badge upon an Astarte's left shoulder guard is a special badge of honor made of stone known as the Crux Terminatus, and said to incorporate fragments of the power armor worn by the Emperor of Mankind when he defeated Horus at the end of the Siege of Terra. The Crux Terminatus now serves as a constant reminder of the Emperor's noble sacrifice for mankind. At the climax of the Horus Heresy, when the Emperor was mortally wounded following Horus's defeat, it is said that the Emperor decreed that his armor be taken off and melted down, and that the pieces be made into badges that all Terminators could wear in recognition of the service performed in the defeat of Horus. However, if this is true, then each suit of Terminator armor must only contain the most minuscule of fragments. It is said that the Crux Terminatus behaves as a ward that augments the Terminator armor itself, capable of turning aside blows that would threaten even a war engine. Elements of the Crux Terminatus on the shoulder plate of a Terminator can be adorned with additional ornamentation in recognition of acts of supreme valor. One such adornment is the Crux Argentum, a shoulder badge of silver encrusted with gems that is awarded to Space Marines who perform acts of valor above and beyond the call of duty. Tactical usage. Almost all Space Marine chapters maintain some suits of Terminator armor and usually train their veteran Astartes in their use, despite the armor's rarity. Terminator armor is worn in very specific circumstances, such as when the close corridors of a hive city or space hulk need to be cleared. Astartes wearing normal power armor would not be ideal in such a role. Instead, they would form a cordon around the Terminators while they carried out their search and destroy mission. In the 41st millennium, Terminator armor has become so rare that its use is reserved for those times when it will provide the maximal tactical benefit. Terminators are best used during starship boarding actions, where the cramped conditions and tight starship corridors maximize the effects of a Terminator's superior firepower while downplaying his lack of maneuverability, as the environment means flanking attacks are unlikely. Terminator armor is also deployed into combat on standard battlefields, when their heavy weapons can be used for long-range strikes, or they can use teleporter technology to suddenly appear amidst a vast group of enemies, where their near invulnerability to damage can transform them into true force multipliers with little risk of their own loss. Armament. Squads of Terminators are most often employed in boarding actions or where the fighting is certain to be close and bloody. Although they can also be equipped with weaponry that allows them to fight at longer ranges, it is brutal assaults that they are primarily designed for. Terminator armor can carry a variety of weapon fits, but the most common armament is a Stormbolter and Power Fist. This configuration allows a Terminator to engage the enemy at long range while advancing before delivering a devastating assault with the deadly energies of a Power Fist, a weapon capable of tearing through the hull of a battle tank with ease. Some Space Marines opt to carry a Chain Fist instead. These weapons have a similar effect to Power Fists, but are equipped with an additional massively powerful chain blade attachment that can carve through the armoured bulkheads of a mighty starship. Within each squad, one Space Marine is often assigned a fire support role. The armour's massive fibre bundle muscles and integrated suspensor fields allow a Terminator to carry a much heavier array of weaponry than his power-armoured brethren. Such warriors may carry the dreaded assault cannon to lay down a hail of heavy shells, a heavy flamer when the fighting is certain to be at extreme close quarters and the enemy closely packed, or a Cyclone missile launcher to engage heavily armoured targets at long range. Certain squads of Terminators are also configured specially for close combat, with no ranged weaponry whatsoever. These squads are most often teleported into battle, where the enemy cannot engage them with long-range firepower before the Terminators attack. The most favoured configuration for these squads is either a pair of lightning claws, multiple fist-mounted blades sheathed in lethal energy that can cut through armour and flesh with equal ease, or a thunder hammer and a storm shield. This latter configuration is usually employed when the enemy is likely to make use of weaponry that may defeat even the formidable armour of a Terminator. A storm shield contains a small power field generator that can protect a warrior in melee and is proof against even the most lethal close combat weapons. The thunder hammer it is commonly paired with is a deadly weapon that releases a terrific blast of energy upon impact. Those it does not kill, vehicles and the living alike, are rendered incapacitated. Deployment. Unlike Space Marines in power armor, Terminators are bulky and slow-moving. As a result, methods have been developed to allow the squads to reach the enemy in enough strength to prevail. Terminator armor is designed to allow its wearer to utilize the technology of teleportation. And through this sometimes treacherous method of transport, Terminators may teleport right into the heart of the enemy battle lines. Although teleportation can be far from accurate, it is often the best way to get Terminators into the thick of the fighting quickly. Teleportation is a barely understood science, and the technology is far from perfect. Many chapters of Space Marines, such as the Space Wolves, have a healthy distrust of such things and refuse to use it. For chapters like this, the more common method of deployment for battle remains the more straightforward Land Raider Spartan heavy assault transport. In this way, Space Marines in Terminator armor can reach the heart of the battle in relative safety. The Land Raider is one of, if not the most powerful tank in the Imperium's arsenal, able to withstand the impact of a battle cannon and barely be slowed. These tanks were designed primarily to enable Terminator squads to travel in safety through the very worst war zones. They are equipped with frontal assault ramps that deliver the warriors within straight into the thick of the fighting. In addition, the most common pattern of Land Raider is armed with powerful las cannons and can act as mobile fire support for the Terminators once they have disembarked. There are also many other Land Raider variants, but one of the most common is the Land Raider Crusader, a pattern developed by Marine artificer Symagus during the Garrulus Crusade of the Black Templars chapter. This crusade involved the besiegement of many heavily fortified bastions of a hive world and enabled the Sword Brethren Terminators of the Black Templars to penetrate the enemy lines with relative ease. With an increased transport capacity and weaponry designed to inflict maximum casualties amongst nearby infantry, many other chapters quickly adopted this Land Raider pattern. Another more recent development is the use of Stormwing squadrons. Comprised of a Storm Raven gunship and 2 Storm Talon escorts, these squadrons have proven exceptional in countless shock assaults. The superb maneuverability of a Storm Raven twinned with its capacious transport bay is a potent combination. So potent, in fact, that it is considered too valuable of an asset to be used lightly. Despite the variety of heavy armaments it boasts, the most deadly of the Stormwing Squadron's weapons is the cargo it carries. Within the cabled belly of a Stormwing Squadron's Storm Raven is a squad of elite battle brothers wearing Terminator armor, waiting for their chance to charge forth to mete out vengeance to the enemies of the Imperium. Because of the front-heavy design of the Storm Talon and the assault ramps that serve as its jaws, as soon as the aircraft settles upon its landing gear and its prow yawns wide, the unit inside can hurl themselves straight into combat, potentially changing the tide of battle within a few seconds of their arrival. So effective is the sudden onslaught of a Stormwing Squadron that traitors, heretics and Xenos warriors alike have learnt to fear them, cowering at the triple silhouette and roaring afterburners of their approach. Terminator armor variants. Designed during the Great Crusade and adapted from the heaviest of industrial gear, several types and patterns of Terminator armor were developed concurrently. Tactical Dreadnought armor has evolved over the centuries, and each of the first founding legions has had their own deviation from the standard pattern Terminator armors of the time. There are, according to fragmented Imperial sources, 4 other patterns of Terminator armor in existence, but these have yet to be publicly outlined by the Adeptus Mechanicus. Some have been reported to be used by the Dark Angels, Ultramarines and Blood Angels chapters, but they may or may not have been variants of the standard Indomitus pattern. The different Terminator armors that have seen service with the Legiones Astartes and the Adeptus Astartes since the founding of the Imperium of Man include Indomitus pattern Tactical Dreadnought armor, originally designed during the Horus Heresy. To replace the severe losses on both sides as the Civil War dragged on, most of the Traitor Legion's Chaos Terminators now use Indomitus pattern Terminator armor, and it is also the pattern most commonly employed at present by the Adeptus Astartes because its template is held on many Keyforge worlds such as Mars. The most widespread pattern of Terminator suit used throughout the Imperium, Indomitus Terminator armor, features large rounded pauldrons and an iconic helmet design that resembles the face of a long-extinct species of Terran canid. On each suit's left shoulder always sits the revered Crux Terminatus. In the aftermath of the Horus Heresy, the Ultramarines pioneered the widespread use of Indomitus pattern Terminator armor, as their legion was unable to replace the older patterns of Terminator armor after the loss of many important Forge worlds during the war. Presently, the Iron Hands, Minotaurs and Salamanders chapters are among those that do not have a full first company's worth of Indomitus pattern Terminator armor for various reasons. The Iron Hands do not field Terminator squads and only their officers wear Terminator armor. The Minotaurs were granted their suits of Terminator armor by the Inquisition, and the Salamanders encouraged their elite battle brothers to manufacture their own arms and armor, leaving their tech marines free to construct and maintain older and more complex war gear. Cataphractii pattern Tactical Dreadnought armor. The Cataphractii pattern of Terminator armor was originally a prototype for the later patterns of Terminator armor that was used by the Space Marine legions and the warriors of the Legio Custodes throughout the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy eras. This slab-shouldered pattern of Terminator armor was similar in many ways to the standard Indomitus pattern Terminator armor used in the 41st millennium, but is easily identified by its double layer of curved ceramite pauldrons and the terriges of adamantium thread that cover the suit's few vulnerable joints in the elbows and thighs. The suit's oversized pauldrons are not without purpose, housing additional shield generators, though the added weight and power requirements of such reinforced protection comes at a cost in speed and maneuverability. The helmet resembled that used by the Mark III iron pattern suit of power armor. Although the use of the Cataphractii pattern was rare before the Horus Heresy, some legions, such as the Sons of Horus and the Iron Hands, possessed a large number of these suits. The Iron Hands Legion passed on these suits to their successor chapters during the second founding. Aquilon pattern Tactical Dreadnought armor. Aquilon pattern Terminator armor is a variant pattern of Terminator armor uniquely designed to operate in conjunction with the physiology of the Adeptus Custodes, the elite cadre of genetically engineered transhuman warriors who are responsible for guarding the Imperial Palace and the physical body of the Emperor of Mankind. The origins of the Aquilon pattern lie with the Cataphractii Terminator suits of the ancient Space Marine legions. But the Aquilon pattern is a masterwork variant that possesses far greatly augmented power capacity and customized neurofiber uplinks, which it is said were redesigned by the mind of the Emperor himself for his elite forces. Aquilon pattern Terminator armor was said to have adjusted for the enhanced physique of the Custodes, who were capable of bearing more weight and strain than even Space Marines. This allowed it to be fitted with additional power systems and capacitors, increasing its durability and maneuverability. Aquilon pattern Terminators were given more advanced weaponry than their Astartes counterparts, wielding weapons such as Lastrum Stormbolters, Solarite power gauntlets, power talons, Infernus firepikes, and twin-linked Adrathic destructors. Within the ranks of the ancient Custodes, Aquilon pattern Terminator armor was deployed by the Tyrannotoi caste. Alaris pattern tactical Dreadnought armor. Alaris pattern Terminator armor is currently used in the 41st millennium by the Alaris custodians of the Adeptus Custodes, the Praetorian Guard of the Emperor of Mankind. The Alaris pattern is an expertly crafted form of Terminator armor whose worth can be measured in worlds. Driven by magnetomic generator shrines, articulated with Leonis-class actuators, and fashioned from layered auramite and adamantium, Alaris Terminator armor is a marvel of craftsmanship. It provides its wearer with an exceptional range of movement, a near unencumbered speed, augmented strength and resilience, and the survivability to stride unharmed from the blast of a macro-cannon shell. Coupled with the protective blessings of the Emperor, Alaris Terminator plate is arguably the most effective man-portable combat armor in the entire Imperium. Just as well, for the battles fought by Alaris custodians demand nothing less. Gorgon pattern tactical Dreadnought armor, a variant of Indomitus pattern. Tactical Dreadnought armor devised by the Iron Hands Primarch Ferrus Manus and his Iron Fathers. This advanced prototype suit was just going into production at the outset of the Horus Heresy in the early 31st millennium, to supplement the Iron Hands Legion's combat-depleted stocks of Terminator armor. The design replaced the field generators embedded in standard Indomitus pattern Terminator armor with experimental conversion field systems that converted incoming electromagnetic and kinetic energy into bursts of blinding light, able to incapacitate and maim nearby foes. However, the heat and electrochemical toxin fallout produced by these systems required the wearer to undergo extensive bionic surgery in order to wear the Gorgon suits, which eventually saw them almost entirely phased out. However, volunteers for this painful modification were plentiful in the 10 Legion's ranks, many deeming it an honor to serve as part of this great endeavor. Tartaros pattern tactical Dreadnought armor. Tartaros pattern Terminator armor was originally developed concurrently with several other patterns of tactical Dreadnought armor towards the closing years of the Great Crusade. The extreme rarity of these suits means that at present these invaluable suits of armor are reserved only for the most well-regarded veterans of a chapter's already highly skilled first company. Perhaps the most advanced form of Terminator armor ever designed, the Tartaros pattern shares many systems with the Mark IV Maximus pattern of power armor and provides an incredible range of movement for its wearer compared to the Indomitus pattern, with no loss in durability or protection. Of the shared characteristics between the Tartaros and Maximus pattern armors, the most obvious is the helmet, though there are other more subtle ones such as the design of the armor on the back of the Tartaros' legs or the vambrace and gauntlets. The Tartaros pattern also seems to share design characteristics with the Contemptor Dreadnought, most especially in the design of the torso plates. There are also characteristics inherited or derived from the venerable Cataphractii pattern Terminator armor, the pauldrons being the more obvious of these. Aegis pattern tactical Dreadnought armor. The Aegis Terminator armor used by the Space Marines of the Grey Knights chapter is similar to the standard Indomitus pattern Terminator armor, but is inscribed with a complex suite of protective prayers, runes and other wards, which are psychically charged by a psychoconductive matrix to provide better protection for a Grey Knight Astartes from the sorcerous powers of demons and other servants of chaos. The only major difference between Aegis Terminator armor and the standard Indomitus pattern, besides the extra layer of psychic protection, is the suit's Crusader helmet, which has been constructed to be very similar to that used by the ancient Mark III iron pattern suit of power armor to provide even more protection. Saturnine pattern tactical dreadnought armor. This pattern of Terminator armor has been described as being functionally identical to both the Tartaros and Indomitus patterns, so any differences between them seem to be functionally aesthetic. Its creation was conceived at the same time as those suits. Little else is known about the Saturnine pattern at this time, save that few examples of this armor pattern are still known to exist. Arcanac pattern tactical dreadnought armor, a rare pattern of Terminator armor about which almost nothing is currently known. It is said that the Minotaur's chapter of Astartes possesses suits of this design. Vulcan's master-crafted tactical dreadnought armor. During the Great Crusade, the Primarch Vulcan personally crafted 20 suits of special tactical dreadnought armor for the Salamander's Legion. This Terminator warplate was far broader and taller than standard legionary power armor, and these had an additional exoskeletal frame carrying slanted plates of extra armor, all decorated in the dark green livery of the Salamanders. Their left hands were fashioned in a variety of powered fists, claws and chain blades designed for close combat, anti-armor assault and bulkhead cutting, and in the right they carried an assortment of weapons ranging from simple combi bolters to triple-barreled autocannons, plasma chargers and missile launchers, as well as rarer weaponry such as a Volkite culverin. But what really set these Terminator armor prototypes apart were the additional advanced weapon systems mounted across the backpacks and shoulders of the Salamander's Terminators. A plethora of armor-piercing missiles, las cannons, multi-melters, and even a conversion beamer wielded by these suits. Each of these advanced weapons could be fired simply by a thought from the Terminator, as the suits also were outfitted with an MIU system similar to that used by the Princeps of Imperial Titans. It is unknown what happened to these suits following the Horus Heresy. Marks I, II and III tactical dreadnought armors. Early in the Great Crusade, the ancient Mechanicum developed a number of prototype tactical dreadnought armors that went through 3 marks of improvement before the final pattern of what became the Cataphractii design was settled upon and entered into production. Some of these suits of early Terminator armor were later held as treasured relics by the chapters of the Second Founding. Chaos Terminator armor. After the traitor legions were driven from the realms of mankind into the Eye of Terror during the Great Scouring following the climactic end of the Horus Heresy, suits of Terminator armor became even rarer. As each legion of Chaos Space Marines fought one another for dominance in the endless internecine struggles for dominance or favor of their patron Chaos gods, many of their most prized relics and artifacts of technology were lost due to attrition. As the Chaos Space Marines succumbed to the powers of the warp, much of the organization and structure of their former Astartes Legion or chapter has disappeared. Therefore, suits of Terminator armor have become their most prized war gear. Carefully maintained and guarded jealously by those fortunate few who have been in possession of these rare examples of advanced technology from a bygone era. Amongst the traitor legions that still reside within the hellish realms of the Eye, only aspiring Chaos champions or Chaos lords who stand in great favor to the ruinous powers wear Terminator armor. So scarce is Terminator armor that sometimes an aspiring champion can only claim a suit for himself by killing the current wearer, whether in ritual combat or by more devious means. Chaos Terminators will often act as the personal guard of such an esteemed champion. Within the warband, they enforce the will of their leader and take the first pick of the spoils of victory. Unique Terminator armor suits. Armor of Antilochus. The armor of Antilochus is a suit of Terminator armor worn exclusively by Chapter Master Marneus Calgar of the Ultramarines. It incorporates a teleport Homer, allowing Terminator squads of the veteran First Company to deploy directly at their Chapter Master's side. Serpent Scales. The Serpent Scales was a unique suit of Terminator armor worn by the Primarch Horus. One of the first prototypes of its kind, it was constantly improved by the Fabricator General Kelbor Hal and the greatest artificers of the Imperium. The serpent's scales was decorated with a pelt from a wolf Horus slew on Davin, where he later first turned to chaos. The Logos was a unique and highly customized suit of Terminator armor that was designed and worn by Primarch Perturabo of the Iron Warriors Legion. It contained sophisticated command and control systems which linked him cybernetically to all the forces under his command, as well as a shifting array of weapons and secondary systems created by his own intellect. These included a teleport homer and twin-linked wrist cannon that could fire a variety of ammunition types. Medusan Carapace. The Medusan Carapace was a suit of Terminator armor designed by the Primarch Ferrus Manus of the Iron Hands Legion that was worn by Manus during the drop site massacre on Istvan V. More than a simple suit of Terminator armor, it possessed many servo mechanisms and support systems to aid the Primarch in many of his more technical activities. Armour of Mars. The Armour of Mars was a suit of Terminator armor worn by the Primarch Angron of the World Eaters Legion that was created by adding new systems and materials to the suit of gladiatorial armor he had originally worn as a captive on his homeworld of New Syria. Terminator armor remains a symbol of the Imperium's might. Do you think this technology can withstand future threats?